Well, good morning. Glad you're here. We're up for our Bible study on Thursday morning. This is September the 24th. We're continuing on in our series on spiritual disciplines. We did a week of review of the first four. Last week we started into outward disciplines. Which the real definition of them are outward expressions of an inward reality. So we live out the things that we are changing, that God is changing on the inside. We talked last week about solitude. I'm hopeful that people took an opportunity to find some quiet moments to do some of those solitary things that we talked about. Nobody is waving their hands saying, oh, me.
I flunked,
You flunked?
but I had other reasons.
Okay, well, we generally do have reasons. Getting alone, being quiet with God, in prayer and in reflection. Is an important thing. It really can help us grow in our relationship with Him. Today we're going to be talking about one that I'm sure is going to be an immediate favorite with everybody, and that is the discipline of simplicity. I will say for anybody who cares that so far it has not been our experience that anybody has joined us in a Zoom Bible study. We've made it available, and to date nobody has asked or sent a message or anything. So if you were hoping for Zoom and you only are able to find it on YouTube, I'm sorry. Let me know that you're ready to Zoom, and we'll get everything hooked up. But it does remove a layer of complexity to a Thursday morning. So you'll find this on YouTube shortly after we're done today. So simplicity of I think probably of all of the spiritual disciplines, it is one of my favorites to focus on. And probably some of it is just because it is an old Shaker hymn that says, "'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be, and when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right." Simplicity is a spiritual discipline. I think it is a gift from God. Some people come by simplicity easier than others. But I love the idea of it. Trying to live a life that is as streamlined and downsized and simple as possible. Now, I will say that back when I was a single bachelor without a lot of money, this one was a lot easier to do. But with a wife who has a good job and a house full of children who all think they need things, and my own peccadillos now, it's a little more complicated to live a simplistic lifestyle. But it is my hope that we can kind of get back into that groove soon. Simplicity is the outward expression of an inward life reality. Both halves of that are necessary, the interior reality and the exterior practice. If we don't have an interior reality, it is impossible for us to display that on the outside. If we do, there's a special name for that. when we pretend on the outside something that's not true on the inside. What's the word for that?
I'm sorry, I was writing.
When we live one way on the outside, which
Sounds
is
like
not.
a hypocrite.
Oh, hypocrisy, play acting, pretending. I think it's possible with simplicity, as with all these exterior disciplines, to pretend like things are one way on the inside just by some kind of manufactured demonstration on the outside. It is really impossible to try to live simply if you don't have that interior reality going on. What are some of the reasons that we accumulate stuff and complicate our lives?
Convenience.
Convenience, all right? Sure.
I enjoy all my stuff.
Just
They bring me
enjoyment?
pleasure, and I don't have to leave the house. I can just walk from room to room.
All right. Okay, so some personal enjoyment of those things. What are other reasons that we accumulate things?
Be prepared for any situation.
Preparation for any situation, that is an important one.
To keep up with the neighbors.
Everybody else has one, so why shouldn't we? Sure, keeping up with the Joneses. Actually, probably here it's the Smiths or the Youngs we're keeping up with, not the Joneses. But any other reasons that come to mind immediately? I don't have a list I'm fishing for, just some people really like shopping. That's therapy for them, to go and to purchase things.
Compulsion.
Sure.
Compulsion shopping gives me
Impulse buying. Okay. Sometimes we get things partially because we want them, but also maybe a little bit to impress some other people. Dave Ramsey talks a lot about buying things we don't need to impress people we don't like. I think that that can be a lot of why we accumulate things. The discipline of simplicity can help us to deal with some of that. The Bible teaches that our lifestyle should be fairly simple. Jesus talked all over the place about money. The Bible is full of guidance about money and possessions. Being overly attached to wealth is not a good thing. There are people in Scripture that were very wealthy. Abraham was loaded. Job was loaded. David and Solomon, the kings, had all kinds of wealth. So it's not to say that a person cannot be wealthy and be faithful to God. But what we don't want to have happen is that we are too attached to our wealth and possessions. Jesus says in Matthew 6:24 that you cannot love God and money. You can't have those two masters. Wealth gets in the way of your relationship with God. God gets in the way of your relationship with wealth, if you're doing it right. Jesus talks more about money than he does anything else in the New Testament. When there are lists of traits for leaders, leaders are in the congregation are not supposed to be lovers of money. Greed is not a godly thing. Greed, avarice, whatever you want to call it. We don't need to be greedy. We don't have to worry about things. Jesus tells us that God will provide for our needs. We don't have to worry. We don't have to kill ourselves trying to get more and more, bigger and better all the time. If God takes care of the birds and the flowers, he's going to take care of us too. Now, I think probably we have to, it might be useful to have a little scale here. So, the Bible talks a lot about materialism. Loving stuff, wanting more and more, hoarding things, loving your wealth and your possessions more than your family or more than God. Those are all clearly, that's not where we want to be. Since the time of Jesus, there have been people who went all the way to the other extreme. Their position is called asceticism. Like somewhere around the 4th century, there were groups of men and some women who got rid of everything, and they went out to the desert, specifically kind of around Egypt and Arabia. They got rid of everything because stuff was evil. They didn't own anything. One of my favorite stories that comes out of some of their readings is that there were 2 of these monks, these brothers, who were living in caves or cells out in the desert, and one of them had something. I think it might have been just a rock or a bowl or something really basic. And they said, well, let's have a fight about it. And so they try to fight about this rock, and it doesn't go very well because they don't like stuff. They don't want things. Hey, can I have that rock? Well, this is my rock, but if you want it, yeah, it's yours. And it was over. That's the short Sarah's version. Asceticism says that possessions are evil, that to own anything is sinful. And so you have people since the time of Jesus who have really worked very hard to get rid of all the things that they own, to live a kind of lifestyle where they own really nothing. If they can't carry it in a backpack, it's too much. Okay, I will tell you that I believe that asceticism down here at this end of the spectrum is also wrong, because God does give us things. He does bless us with wealth and possessions. Whether we have a big pile or a small pile, the things that we have are given by God, and we don't want to call the gifts that God gives to us evil. James says that every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. James 1:17. Good gifts, they're from Him. So let's not say that things are evil and wrong. The right position is right here in the middle, and that is where simplicity kicks in for us. We have some things, but we are not controlled by them. Okay? That really is sort of the heart of simplicity, is that we are not controlled by our things. On the way to our house in West Haven, there's a brand new massive storage facility right across the road, down the street a little bit from another massive storage facility. And I'm assuming that as more homes and more apartments go in, that there will be additional storage facilities. Let me just tell you, I think that storage facilities like that, by and large, are absolutely ridiculous. We have so much stuff, we cannot fit it in our home, but we don't want to get rid of it. So we're going to pay extra money for this place to hold all of our stuff that we don't look at ever. We just keep paying for that space over and over and over and over again. I'm sure I'm wrong, but that just seems sort of crazy to me. the lengths we're willing to go to store things that we're not using and may not ever use. Again, possessions have a proper place and function in life, controlling us, dictating our lifestyle is not where they're supposed to be. We don't want to be controlled by anything except for God, certainly not by our collection of whatever, Tupperware bowls or
Precious moments.
pure Pyrex containers or drill bits or whatever. I won't go into certain areas with certain people in the room. So, so the question of simplicity, one of the questions that simplicity would bring up is, so how much is too much? How many do you need? Do you need more than one hammer? Do you need more than one screwdriver? Do you need more than one basketball? Do you need more than one pair of black dress shoes? High heel, no heel, slip-ons, ties, bows, tassels. Okay, so one of the real dangers with simplicity is that somebody takes it from being a tool that helps us to be in control of our things, to being controlled by a law about them. Legalism is the real danger, that you know, if you get to a certain place for yourself with your stuff, you say, well, I need one pair of black shoes, one pair of brown shoes, a black belt, and a brown belt. That's all I need. Okay, that's great for you, but you can't lay that same law down on everybody else. Unless, of course, you're their dad. Then you can absolutely say that. But for other believers, you don't get to dictate that rule for them. The tendency is toward legalism in almost everything we do. We don't want to be legalistic about this discipline of simplicity, which is to not be controlled by the things that we own. In Matthew 6, 25 to 34, we'll read through some verses there. Jesus said, I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor about your body, what you shall put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, they neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Then down in verse 33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be yours as well. Jesus tells us there we're worth more than the birds of the air. God takes care of them. He promises he will always take care of them. We have more value than sparrows or starlings or grackles or whatever. God cares about us, and he promises that he'll provide for us. That kind of brings us back again to this central point of simplicity is we don't want to be controlled by our stuff. The one thing that we want to control us is our pursuit of God's kingdom. That really should be the number one controlling factor in our lives. We want to pursue God's kingdom for ourselves. If we're seeking God's kingdom first, then everything else kind of falls in behind. If I'd been thinking about it this morning early enough, I would have gathered up enough things to do a little object lesson for you, but I know you've seen it before. Get a big jar, you have a container of golf balls, a container of, usually it's like corn or jelly beans or something, and another container of sand. And when you put the sand in first, and then you put the beans in, and then you put the golf balls in, they don't all fit into the jar. it just doesn't fit. You can push as much as you want, it doesn't go in. But when you put the golf balls in first, and then you fill in with the things that are next most important, and then you put in the sand, the smaller pieces, then all of it fits. That's pretty much what simplicity teaches us. That if we will put the pursuit of God's kingdom first, then everything else will fit in, and we really don't need to worry about it. It has to be the first priority. Getting stuff, having money, collecting bits and pieces for ourselves cannot get in the way of our pursuing God's kingdom first. Even if we are trying to live a simple life materially and physically, financially, it would still be a great danger for us to be so concerned about that and to miss out on the real joy of seeking the kingdom first. Okay, we have to make sure that we're after the kingdom first. We can do simple stuff all day long. We can get down to 4 pairs of shoes and 1 mixing bowl, and the simplest thing that we can possibly have. It all fits in the back of a Toyota hatchback. That's great. But if that is the controlling factor in our life, then we messed it up. We're not doing simplicity right. Okay? It's not. We don't want to be controlled either by the accumulation or the deaccumulation of stuff. The real focus is putting God's kingdom first and allowing our pursuit of things, our maintenance of things, to follow in after that. There are some real benefits for us if we will pursue simplicity. For one, we miss out on anxiety. There are some people that all they worry about is their stuff, their vehicle, their home, their toys, their tools, their clothing, hats, jewelry, whatever, videos, technology, whatever it is. That's all they can focus on is, I was in the parking lot and some idiot in the grocery store dinged my car. I got a scratch on my side of my car, and I'm just devastated by it. Okay. If you live a simpler lifestyle, some of that anxiety goes away, because you realize that your possessions are just stuff. Richard Foster says that if someone is unconcerned about possessions, that they really know simplicity. It is an interior frame for us. It is the guiding principle inside, that we're not constantly thinking, is my stuff okay? I got to make sure my stuff is all right. Somebody's going to steal my stuff or hurt my stuff. I want to make sure that it's all where it's supposed to be. If we're seeing God's kingdom, then we can just trust that because we're seeking Him, that He is going to take care of all these things for us. There is a lot of freedom in simplicity. You don't feel like you have to buy every new gadget. You don't feel like you have to have everything locked up tightly and secured and maintained all the time. No, it's not to just say you leave the front door open and with the big flashing sign that says come in and take whatever you want. But there are some people who just really can't ever relax when they're away from home because they've left everything that they value behind. For people who deal with a lot of anxiety about their belongings, trying to adopt this simpler perspective in spiritual discipline can really help a lot. Now, we talked about one danger, which is turning into legalism, sort of like the extension of that. Another danger is that we believe that poverty or homelessness would be the ultimate spiritual goal. Because somebody might say, well, poor people, they don't worry about money. Oh, I don't know if that's true. I've known people without a lot of money, and they worry about it, think about it, dream about it, are controlled by it much more than somebody who is comfortable or even incredibly wealthy. Being broke is not necessarily the most spiritual place that somebody can be. That doesn't guarantee that they're not constantly thinking about money, loving money, seeking money. Wealth does not bring freedom from worry or anxiety. Wealthy people worry. Poor people have anxiety and fuss about it. So it really doesn't seem to make a difference whether you have a little or you have a lot. Money and possessions really can control you. Learning to have this attitude that you control what you own, you are not controlled by what you own, really can bring freedom to anybody on the spectrum. Okay, there are three attitudes that characterize freedom from anxiety. This is where maybe we can start to figure out if we're heading in a simpler way. First, what we have has been received as a gift from God. Everything we have has been received as a gift from God. Again, we just talked about James chapter 1, that every good and perfect gift comes down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. Everything we have comes from Him. There is an amount that we contribute to what we have by our work and our diligence, but it is really the blessing of God that brings us our basic daily needs. We are dependent on God for everything. He is the provider. We are the recipients. Okay? That's an attitude for us to adopt. Everything I have doesn't really belong to me. It's not because of what I've done. It is a gift of God. It is a blessing from Him. Okay? A second attitude is that what we have is to be cared for by God. Okay? If God gives us a home, He provides us the opportunity to live in this place. He will also provide the opportunities we need, the resources we need to maintain. If we're not trusting Him to provide for what we need to maintain what He's given, we're still trying to have control. We still believe that we're way more important in the situation than we are. We can trust God to care for what He has given us. That doesn't mean we just lay on the couch and eat Cheetos and watch Judge Judy all day long. We do need to work. We need to stay busy. We are supposed to be stewards, but we shouldn't wear ourselves out with panic and anxiety in trying to find ways to care for what God's given us. And the third attitude is that what we have is available to others. A long time ago, 20 years ago now, I guess. 20 years ago, I was tired of driving a little nothing car. I had a Ford Tempo, and it was worn out, and it was ugly, and I never really did want it or like it, but I drove it for like 10 years. And finally I said, that's enough. This is not what I want anymore. And so I went and bought a used truck, which was pretty and comfortable, and I loved everything about that truck. I probably really couldn't afford it as much or as well as I should have. It caused me some other issues, but I said from the beginning, this is actually God's truck. I'm driving it for him, but if somebody needs to use it, somebody needs to borrow it, somebody needs something hauled or pulled or picked up, I'll do that. And that was probably the one point in my life as an adult where I had the right kind of perspective on that very large purchase. Now, I suppose probably somewhere deep I was hoping that God was just going to take care of the payments for me because I said it was his truck. $251.39 every month. Anyway, but I really did say that, and I really did believe it. This is God's truck, and if somebody needs to use it, absolutely we'll do that. And so it moved a lot of people. It hauled a lot of hay and railroad ties and all kinds of crazy stuff for people. That's a good thing for us to do. I wish I was in that spot as much now as I was then. Whatever I own is available to everybody. Because we know that God gives us everything and that he cares for everything for us, then we can just trust to share what we've been given with other people. We have those three attitudes. We're going to have freedom from anxiety. They make up what is the real, true, inner reality of Christian simplicity. What I have is from God. He's going to take care of what he's given me. Everything I have is available to others. Any thoughts or comments? No. Everybody is so quiet. I know they're making lists in their head about all the things they're going to offload this weekend. All right, well, let's talk for a little bit more here. Okay, so we have those attitudes inside. What I have is a gift from God. He's going to care for what he has given me, and everything that he's given me is available to other people. That's not just something that we can think about on the inside. It should be internalized. It ought to take root in us, but that also should work its way out into some kind of expression outside. So here's another list of 10 principles that should give us direction for the outward expression of the interior attitude of simplicity. Okay, 10 principles that guide us as we try to express outwardly this new inward reality we have. Number 1, buy items for usefulness rather than status. Buy items for usefulness rather than status. What do you need? Lawnmower? Okay, so you go down to the lawnmower store and there is a perfectly good lawnmower. It's pretty simple, pretty boring, not a brand name. Or there is the gorgeous, big, beautiful, shiny, 0 turning radius, sit on top. It just fairly mows the yard on its own. Everybody that looks at that thing drools when they see it. You can afford either one. Which is the right choice for you? Or should buy things for usefulness rather than status. If two things do the same job in the same way, and one's got a big fancy label and one does not. Obviously, the simple lifestyle would choose the thing without the big brand name. You need a four-door car? Let's not go buy a four-door Maserati. Let's just go buy a four-door Ford or whatever you're inclined to do that costs a third of the price. Number 2, reject anything that is producing an addiction. Reject anything that is producing an addiction. Be a slave to nothing but to God. Reject anything that is producing an addiction. I realize I've seen most of you pull your toes back away from the table because, you know, you're afraid I'm going to step on them. But my toes are back too. There are things that we buy that might cause us to want to buy some more. And I am not going to give any examples because I don't want you all to kill me. But if there are things that that we would purchase that might bring about some longer love affair with something else, we should probably avoid that. Number 3, develop a habit of giving things away. Develop a habit of giving things away. De-accumulate. How many Cool Whip containers do you really need in your kitchen cabinet? My grandma had every single one she'd ever used ever. Why? She was never going to use them again, but she might need them sometime. De-accumulate. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Give away. Number 4. Refuse to be propagandized by the custodians of modern gadgetry. How about that? Refuse. Okay, don't give in to gadgets. Is new and improved really new and improved? Is an iPhone 8 really that much different than an iPhone 7? That's probably the place where this shows up all the more often now, as new and improved versions of technology are released really very often. I would be just as happy in life if I had my original first flip phone from 1990, whatever. It was not complicated. It made a phone call every time I needed it to. It received a phone call every time I needed it to. And I never wanted to throw it across the room in rage. Okay? You may know people who, as soon as they see a gadget advertised, it is in Amazon on their front porch, ready to go. Okay, that's cool. But how often do you really use a mango hitter? Okay. Don't give in to gadgets. Number 5, learn to enjoy things without owning them. Learn to enjoy things without owning them. What do you suppose is meant by that?
We're gonna borrow your truck because you are gonna let us use it, we don't have to buy one.
Okay, sure. That would be a large example. What about like a book? I like books. I like to buy books. I like to believe I'm going to read those books. But it would probably be just as easy and way less expensive for me if I would just go to the library and borrow it, rather than buying the $15 movie that I now have to put on a bookcase and alphabetize and keep under control. Wouldn't it just be easier for me to go to the red box and rent it for $1? Okay. I mean, that's not the sole solution here for what we're talking about, but there are a lot of things that we can learn to love and appreciate without having to buy one on our own. You know, our family would really love to go camping. We really do not need to buy a trailer or an RV, which is what everybody really wants. We don't need to buy a motorhome so we can go camping 2 weekends a year. Right?
Right.
It's just as easy to go rent a KOA cabin or even to rent an RV or a trailer and pull behind a vehicle. Okay, so that's kind of what we're talking about. Enjoying things without owning them. Going to the art museum instead of buying art for your number 6, develop a deeper appreciation for the creation. Develop a deeper appreciation for the creation. Get close to the earth. There is something that is kind of magical and spiritual about going for a walk through the woods, or to sit beside the lake and listen to the wind and the waves. That costs almost nothing to do that. But that really can be such a powerful grounding experience for us. So get closer to creation and nature. Number 7, be skeptical about buy now, pay later. Again, this kind of overlaps a little with Dave Ramsey stuff. Ramsey would say that if you can't afford to pay for it in cash, you really can't afford to buy it. Be skeptical about buy now, pay later. If you can't afford to buy the television with cash, you don't need to buy it right now, because you will end up being a slave to that thing. And it may end up being broken before you get it paid off. I know that's never happened to anybody before, where they've bought a new car and it was totaled before you made the first payment. Okay, be very cautious when it comes to big purchases. If you can't afford to buy it at once, buying now and paying later is a very dangerous choice. I can't tell you not to do it. I can just say it's super dangerous and really risky, not a great financial choice. Number 8, obey Jesus' instructions about plain, honest speech. Obey Jesus' instructions about plain, honest speech. Simplicity, not just about stuff. It's in the way we dress, the way we react, the way we speak. So we need to obey Jesus' instructions about plain, honest speech. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. This next one is sort of timely. Number 9 is reject anything that breeds the oppression of others. Reject anything that breeds the oppression of others. This is going to sound political. I'm stating fact that has been widely reported. There are many superstar athletes who have been for weeks and months now railing against things like inequality and poverty. They have multi-million-dollar contracts, whether they play or not. They have loads of money, much more than all of us would ever see together in our lives. But at the same time, they are in a business relationship in other places in the world where people are producing gear, clothing, shoes, with their images and their numbers and their uniforms and their logos for them. And these people who are making it they're not making millions of dollars. They're making pennies a day. These people are really slaves to the corporations that they work for. it would be, I believe, the better choice for us if we have an opportunity to buy something that is at the expense of untold dozens or hundreds of people, or I'm not saying this very well. So let me try again. Let me think about it for a second.
I made in America.
Maybe, but maybe not just that. Okay, so I don't know if it picked it up or not, but the suggestion for what I'm trying to say is buy made in America. Sometimes that's true. I want to make sure that the things that I buy are not so incredibly, that they are not causing the enslavement or the oppression or the abuse or suffering of somebody else. Like if I'm going to buy coffee, I want to make sure that it is coffee that wasn't picked by people who got paid a nickel a day and are starving. I want to make sure that the clothes that I buy are made in a place where people are being paid a wage to where they can buy food and the things that their family needs. That's we don't want to help continue that sort of extortion and abuse and subjugation of other people someplace else in the world just because we wanted it at a really good deal. Okay. And if LeBron, Colin, if you happen to be watching, I would apologize, but I'm really not sorry. Number 10, shun anything that distracts you from seeking the kingdom of God. Shun anything that distracts you from seeking the kingdom of God. You see it advertised, it really looks good. You know you would love it, you would appreciate it, you would use it. But if it's going to get in the way of your relationship with Jesus, if it is going to keep you from pursuing the kingdom first, even if you can afford it, you ought to pass it up. I'd give you an example, but I can't think of one without making myself look like a creep. So, shun anything that distracts you from seeking God's kingdom. Okay, again, those are 10 principles. Some of them are easier than others. 10 principles that can give us some direction for the way that we express outwardly the change inside us, the reality inside us, that we want to live a simpler lifestyle. We want to pursue the kingdom of God. We don't want to pursue stuff. We want to serve God. We don't want to serve stuff. I think maybe for me, that's really the biggest issue. I don't want to be controlled by all the things that I own. If I thought I could get away with it, I would probably get rid of half of everything in our garage right now, just like that. Because there's so much and it requires so much time and energy and money to maintain it all. Why do we have all this stuff? I don't know. We think we're going to use it someday. I'll give you this for example, and then I'll be done. We moved into our house in West Haven in June of 2014. AJ was 1.5. Cole was 7. Cora was 6. And moving into the house, there are all these things that we thought we needed to do, pictures we wanted to hang up, and this thing and that thing we wanted to install. Last week and the week before, I went into the laundry room to look at the counter of ever-accumulating items and pulled out from the end a black shelf with 3 hooks. I moved that black shelf with the 3 hooks to the West Haven house from the Riverdale house. It has never been hung up in 6 years. Why do I still have this shelf? Because I'm controlled by it. I bought it, and so I feel like I need to do something with it. I bet right now that you can think of a half a dozen things in your own home which are just like that. I'm going to get around to it. It was a gift, or I bought that. It was a really good deal. I just haven't done anything with it yet. Okay, how long are you going to allow that thing to take up space in your house and control your life? If you're feeling guilty after you listen to this, good. This means you. Make a change. Do something different. Let's try to live a more simpler, that's awesome English, a more simple lifestyle so we can really pursue what matters most, which is our relationship with God. The last thing I have written on my page here is, in all things, let's keep God and his kingdom as the very first priority in our lives, because when we do that, we will know the simplicity that comes from God. For all of you who are watching on YouTube, thanks for being here this morning. So if you just happened on this one, you can go back and find solitude and the other 4 interior disciplines: study, prayer, meditation, and fasting. And be sure to hang around next time for the next one of the outward disciplines, which will be either submission or service. Bye.